Now, we're beginning to get some news as we reach the conclusion of inquests into the deaths of 4 young gay men killed by the serial killer Stephen Port. The inquests have been happening in Barking in East London, and our correspondent Helena Wilkinson is outside Barking Town Hall. Helena, what's the news?
Well, the background to this is that these 4 young gay men in their early 20s were all killed by the serial killer Stephen Port. This inquest, which has been going on for a couple of months here at Barking Town Hall, has been looking at the police investigations into those 4 deaths, and the jury has been reached their conclusions, and some of those conclusions are now being read to court. Now, the 4 victims, Anthony Walgate, Gabriel Cavari, Daniel Whitworth and Jack Taylor, and the inquest jury here has concluded in the last couple of minutes that failings by the Metropolitan Police probably contributed to the death of Stephen Port's second victim. His name was Gabriel Cavari, who was murdered in August 2014. So the jury has reached a conclusion on that question that was put to them during this inquest, and they have concluded that failings by the Metropolitan Police probably contributed to the death of Stephen Port's second victim.
They're forced to wait for handouts.
Apologies, we are going to come out of that report about Madagascar. We're going to go to East London because the families of some of the young men murdered by Stephen Port are just sitting down, as you see, preparing to begin a news conference to give their first public reactions to the findings of that inquest jury. The jury, just in the last hour and a half or so, saying that there were failings by the Metropolitan Police, which allowed Stephen Port to carry out those murders. Let's listen in.
Jenny Taylor, Donna Taylor. Here we've got Colin and Jeanette Taylor, who are not answering any questions today. And then we've got Andy Ireland, who is Donna's husband-to-be. Significant other. So first of all, Neil's going to read out a statement for you, which I'm going to email out to everyone. Then we'll open it up for some questioning, maybe just about 10, 15 minutes. So Neil, over to you.
Thank you. We welcome today's conclusions. The jury has obviously taken great care and considerable time to return these clear failings. We feel thoroughly vindicated by their findings. The inadequate investigation by the Metropolitan Police into the deaths of Anthony, Gabriel, Daniel and Jack should be on public record as one of the most widespread institutional failings in modern history.
Probably contributed to the deaths of the 3 later victims. Well, in a statement, the police say that we know there were failings in the initial police investigations, and we're truly sorry. The families and friends of these young men rightly expected professional and thorough police investigations into the deaths of their loved ones, and they didn't get that. It is hugely disappointing that the initial investigations were not better. We do not believe the Met is institutionally homophobic. The coroner has directed the jury away from any findings that are not supported by the evidence, and this includes the notion of institutional homophobia. Baroness Casey of Blackstock has been appointed to lead an independent review into our standards and culture in the Met as we work to rebuild trust. So those are some of the comments from the Metropolitan Police to that inquest jury's findings that failings in the initial investigation into killings by Stephen Port potentially contributed to the deaths of 3 later victims. Well, our correspondent Helena Wilkinson is outside Barking Town Hall, and that police statement making it clear, Helena, that the coroner was pretty categorical that the jury could not find, because there was no evidence, suggestions of institutionalised homophobia within the Met Police.
Yes, that's right. The jury were not asked to consider that in their conclusions when they were asked questions during this inquest. But the family and friends, and as you've just heard there in that press conference from the bereaved family members.
We're going to take you over to the Metropolitan Police. They're responding to that inquest jury's findings concerning the serial killer Stephen Port. Let's hear what they've got to say.
Killed. They have also found that the deaths of 3 of those young men, Gabriel, Daniel and Jack, could probably have been prevented had the initial police responses and investigations been better. It is a devastating finding. Our thoughts are with everybody who loved these young men. We are so sorry for their loss. And we're also deeply sorry that there were failings in the police investigations and the responses to their murders. I give my own and the Met's heartfelt apologies. All those who loved Anthony and Gabriel and Daniel and Jack expected a thorough and professional police investigation into their deaths. And it's a great sadness for me and for everybody at the Met that this didn't happen. We want to give the families and Daniel's partner the opportunity to talk to us so that we can hear their views and listen to their concerns. The Commissioner has offered to meet with them personally, and so have I, and we will take this forward according to their wishes. We've been working to rebuild trust in the Met for some time now, and we completely accept that people's trust in us has been damaged by a number of recent events. What has happened in connection with the deaths of these 4 young men is part of that damage, and we know has a particular impact in communities local to Barking and LGBT+ communities across London. And so it's very important now to show that we are trustworthy, that we care,